Jamie's 3,000 penalty minutes. He might have got like a 20-game suspension. But
She goes, wow, you're way better shape than Rocco.
Husky is a complete like idiot on this shift, but everything he did was so honorable.
You can't do that in today's day and age, right? The game can't do this. Can't handle us right now.
The left one, he gets tripped up, gets it to May, and over the line. He's May going in on goal. He scores.
Welcome to the Overtime with Mayday podcast.
Mayday May, how you doing, Maisie? What's going on, buddy? What have you been up to?
You know what? Life couldn't be better. It's loving it. Although it's wintertime right now here in Toronto. It's pretty cold outside, but above and beyond that, family's good. And I just recently got back from Aspen, Colorado, skiing and playing some hockey. So had a really good time.
You are living the dream, brother, as always. Saw you the other day. You were doing some color or pregame stuff for the Leafs. Tell me about that. I wasn't aware of that. That's awesome.
Yeah, so I do all the pregame shows, or say all. I'll do probably 34, 35 of them this season for the Toronto Maple Leafs. All their home games. So yeah, it's fun. So we do it, and the way TV is today, certainly here in Canada, TSN and Rogers Sportsnet, they have the market. Each team used to have like their own shows, but now it's driven more to social media. So TikToks and the Instagrams more for the vignettes, the small little clips, and that's where the different ages of fans, the interaction and the viewership of it, a lot of it's on their devices, whether it's an iPad, computer or a cell phone. So that's what it's all about. But yeah, we do it. It's kind of informal. It's called unsportsmanlike content. And I do it with Ryan Leslie, who used to be the host for the Calgary Flames. And now he's the host for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
That is awesome. We'll have to get him on one of these days in one of our humble pods. I'd love to have it.
Oh, Ryan. Ryan's great.
Great. So
Ryan,
walk us through a little bit of that. So you leave your home the day of a game. You drive down into the city. I suspect you're doing them at the arena. The ones I saw the background was at the rink. So now, do you stay for the whole game? Are you a guest of the Leafs? Do you what give us a little rundown for the groceries like me in life that don't ever get the chance to do that? Tell me, what is it you do when you arrive?
Yeah, okay. So we do the pregame show. It's a 30-minute show. It's an hour before puck drop in Toronto. So depending on what time the game starts, what I do is typically, because I'm an insurance broker by trade currently. So my office is right downtown. So I basically plan my week or schedule around when there's home games, then I'm going to be in the office doing what I do. And then I'm already downtown. I'm right there, right beside Union Station. And you walk through the path, which is an underground system in Toronto. And it takes me right to Scotia Arena. And we do our show from either Real Sports, which is one of their properties, sports bar, or we do it right from Gate 5 inside where they have a studio set up. And we do it for 30 minutes, and we bring on typically, one or two guests. So we've been fortunate this season. We've had Paul Bissonnette on a couple times from Spit and Chicklets. We've had Will Arnett, who's from Saturday Night Live. We've had a number of people. Last night, actually, we had the Blind Hockey Association, gentleman who started the blind hockey in Canada. And I put on the goggles and the puck they use for blind hockey and learned a little bit about it. Promoted, obviously, the blind hockey organization. And they have a world championship tournament in March here in Toronto. Excuse me. So it's actually been a lot of fun meeting a lot of people. But then we morph into, we talk about the Leafs, what's to come, what people are going to expect to see, make a couple predictions, I'll tell a few stories, and the 30 minutes it comes on and it's finished very, very quickly. It's fun. It's informal, so I don't have to wear a suit. I can wear whatever I want. I can be whatever I want, and as long as you're not going to embarrass the Toronto Maple Leafs brand, that's it.
Yeah. Seventh Fan Brewing, crack open the taste of victory with our hockey-centric brews. Introducing the Penalty Box Pilsner and the Instigator IPA. Created for hardcore hockey fans, just in time for the playoffs. Get out, get a six-pack, grab a couple kegs, enjoy. Check out the seventhhandbrewing.com with locations in the Pacific Northwest, coming soon to Canada and across other areas in the Pacific Northwest. Seventh Fan Brewing, your beer partner. All right, let's drop the puck and talk about our next guest. Born in Creston, British Columbia, home of Kokanee beer, played in the Western Hockey League for Portland, Seattle, the Breakers, the Thunderbirds. Eventually was traded to the Medicine Hat Tigers, winning the Memorial Cup in 86-87. Drafted by the New Jersey Devils in 1985. Played a total of 406 games in the American Hockey League, 52 games in the NHL, with a total of 758 professional games. Tough defensive defenseman, accumulated almost 3,000 PIMs in his professional hockey playing career, including over 1,000 in the NHL. I would like to welcome one of my best friends in the world, and I'm lucky enough to play hockey with this guy every week, to the Overtime with Mayday Hockey Podcast. Jamie Huscroft, welcome to the pod, Husky.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be talking with you two legends.
Well, hey, let's getting right into it. Rocco, great intro. Husky. So Husky and I were teammates and with the Vancouver Canucks. And of Jamie's 3,000 penalty minutes, he might have got like a 20-game suspension, but it was actually in training camp, and those penalty minutes don't count. But what he did to a young man, a young first-round pick, if I remember correctly, Husky, starting this thing off right now. Listen, you're more than just a tough guy, but I love you for being the tough guy because I played against you. We did get in a fight ourselves, but when we were teammates, this is one of the greatest spectacles I've ever seen. I'd love you to tell me what you remember about our training camp in Whistler.
That was
Yeah,
was that Wild
Brad
Thing?
Ferentz.
Brad Ferentz, Wild
Brad
Thing.
Ferentz.
Yeah.
Yes.
He was a first-round pick, right? Was that his first training camp?
He was a first round pick by the Florida Panthers, but he was traded to us with Ed Jovanovski in the Ed Jovanovski trade for Pavel Bure.
That's right. That's why I didn't recognize.
So we went to training camp in Whistler. I believe that's what it was.
It was Whistler.
And he comes to training camp.
Were you on his team or my team at the time?
I was on your team. So I actually I played bigger and stronger too.
So you want to take it or you want me to?
Well, I'm setting you up. So
okay.
basically, Husky is a complete like idiot on this shift, but everything he did was so honorable because he was protecting not only our team, our identity, but the other players on the ice, because there's a lot of behavior that is unacceptable.
Yeah.
And maybe Jamie, you can
Well,
take it from there, and I'll fill in a little
Okay,
bit.
so here's and I my memory, is suspect at best, but how I remember it is, remember Matthias Olin, right? He was our number one defenseman, arguably, and I think he was making a lot of money. And so Ole comes back to the bench, and Wild Thing's running around, but so was everybody else. But so this Brad young fella was running around, and he just Brad's, I think, a defenseman, wasn't he? Or is he
Yes, yeah, Brad Ferentz.
A defenseman against defenseman, like it's usually a defense against forwards, right? And all of a sudden he goes in the corner, he cross-checks. I'm like, oh, well, that was weird. Why would he do that? So Ole comes back to the bench and, or Matthias comes back to the bench. He goes, Ski, why he do that to me? Like, I know I don't fight. I don't want, I don't like this. Why? And I'm like, I says, let me know if he does it again, right? And I didn't. It's training camp. I'm a veteran at that time. I don't want to be fighting. And so now I'm kind of watching. So I'm like, so all of a sudden, Ferentz goes by him and he sticks him this time. And Ferentz sticks Ole. So Ole comes back to the bench. He goes, Husky, he did it again. You know why? And I'm like, oh, crap. I says, okay. I said, Ole, if he does it again, then I will do something, right? Because it's not right, right? So it just for everybody, right? They you don't do that. Enforcers don't go after goal scorers or talented players. Brad May goes after Jamie Huscroft and Donald Brashear, right, and vice versa, and Scatchert and Strudwick and these other guys, but they don't. Brad Ferentz doesn't go after Matthias Olin. He goes after Jamie Huscroft or Brad May, and he wasn't. So it was anyways, and so he does it again, and I remember the play because it was the puck was in the corner and he hit him, and I just jumped off the bench. So I wasn't even on.
There's your first 10-minute misconduct, game misconduct.
Yeah.
Too many men on the ice.
Yeah, too many men. Like I would have been done forever. So, and it's an exhibition game, right? So it doesn't matter. So I jump off the bench. So I think the play's still going, and I just, and you know how you are, Brad, right? And then I just lost my marbles, and I went after him, and I'm screaming at him, and I'm just like, I explained to the kid that you can't go after Matthias. You have to go after Brad or myself or Donald Brashear or Scatchy, but you can't go after Matthias because he's paying your wages. In other words, he's the guy that people are coming to see, not us. People don't care about us. Anyways, so I don't know what, nothing transpired of that. I think he was kind of yelling and screaming at himself and whatever, but he wasn't looking at me. So he goes to the bench, right? So, and then I'm on the ice. I'm a right-handed defenseman, and his bench is like 10 feet away from me. And he's on the bench and he's throwing his stuff down and he's swearing. Now I look in the stands and there's, Brian Burke and
Mike Keenan
and all the guys, all the brass are watching this game, and they're going, I wonder what's going to happen here. And I'm on the ice going, I wonder what's going to happen. But he didn't come out. So finally I looked at the bench and I'm like, hey kid, you're either going to shut up, or you get out here and let's fight. I says, but quit. I said, shut up. You're embarrassing both of us. And then, so I think that's all it took. And then he came out and then we fought. So that's the story. But but after the game, I remember both Keenan and Berkey coming up to me and going, you did the right thing. Right? That's why you're here, because we can't have him going after our superstars. But I don't know if you know it any differently. But that's how.
I remember being on the ice and just like first of all, I love that type of hockey too. But the idea, and by the way, Brad Ferentz was a good hockey
Yes,
player,
he was.
first rounder.
Yes.
But the thing is, you don't go after the star players or at that. And by the way, I guess you can, but you have to stand up for yourself. So he was trying to make a name for himself and certainly be noticed.
And he did.
And I commend him for that. But then you got a Jamie Huscroft with a Wyatt Earp mustache, on the ice, which is intimidating enough. And Husky, if he doesn't wear shoulder pads, he'd still look like he's wearing shoulder pads. Like, I mean, he's probably in the best shape of anybody on our team. And anyways, when you went over there, you scared the guy to death. But it was a good fight. You gave it to him a little bit.
Remember.
But I think you taught him a lesson. And every other player, by the way, it's not just for the guy that you're doing that to. It's to set a tone for everyone else.
Yeah.
And I think it was amazing. It was just nice that you were on my team. And if now spinning that going, backwards, Husky and I he played for the Boston Bruins and I played for the Buffalo Sabres. And I'm on a line on this particular night in Boston was it still the Boston Garden or was that the Fleet Center? I can't remember.
Garden.
Boston Garden, right?
Boston Garden, yeah.
Boston Garden. And basically Robbie and Ray and I were 1-2, 2-1. And typically Razor gets the tough guys, like the older established tough guys, and I'll get number 2 typically because I'm the younger guy. But I needed to get in a fight. And just for whatever it was, I have no idea if it was peer pressure or just what because we were a team of misfits in Buffalo.
And so this is before the game. This is opening face-off.
Yeah. We haven't. The game hasn't even started.
Yep.
And so Rob and I'm a left winger, and Husky's a right hand shot, but Rob's a left winger too. So we're on the ice together, and Razor goes to line up against Jamie Huscroft, and I'm like, no. I have to line up against Jamie Huscroft because apparently he's a really tough guy and I need to get in a fight. And if Rob fights him, then who do I get, right? Maybe there was nobody else, but we were both so hungry. We ended up switching and I'm now beside or across from Jamie, and the puck is literally still in the referee's hand. There's 60 minutes to go in the game. And as the puck is dropping out of his hand, Husky and I start a fight. The fight actually turns out
we're dancing, right?
It's pretty good.
And the damn
it was a wrestling match, really.
Yeah.
And it was a good fight for, to set the tone. But during the fight, and I don't know if Jamie knew this, but during the fight, he's a dirty fighter, just so you know. And he actually poked me in the eyeball with his finger. And he did. And my contact lens came out of my eye. So I'm not, after the fight, he thinks that he hit me with a stiff one. I can't open my eye, but it's because my contact's out. I'm now looking for it on the ice. He's been escorted to the penalty box. I'm looking for the contact lens on the white ice. got a little blue tint because I got blue eyes. It really enhances them. Anyways, I ended up going to the penalty box, couldn't find the contact lens, but it was right in where our penalty box door was on the same side of the ice that we were fighting. But 2.5 minutes into the penalty in this 5-minute major, I stand up on the glass and I'm looking down the ice towards the goal, but on the dasher board going into the inside the blue line. And I'm like, oh my God, there it is. And my contact lens was on the dasher board. So whistle blows. I skate out of the penalty box. I grab my contact lens, go across the ice. I put it back in my eye. I come back, and Husky didn't come near me the rest of the game.
You know, I'm
They don't
surprised.
show that on
I'm
YouTube.
surprised
Let
we
me
didn't.
tell you.
Do I remember that right?
Yes, perfectly. You know what? Because
But
I wanted to fight.
other than you being afraid.
Yes,
Other than
yeah.
you being afraid.
Well, you know what?
Yeah.
You didn't give me time to be afraid because in my mind, it was in the lineup. It was like, well, I'm fighting Rob Ray. I'm a righty. He's a lefty or whatever. You were on the other side. So before the game started, you know, you guys posted your starting lineup. So, you know, Tommy McVie says, you know, hey, Husky, you know, you're probably going to have to fight Razor tonight. And I'm like, oh, whatever. Right. And so I kind of, in my mind, I'm rehearsing fighting Razor and, you know, his jersey's going to come off and he's probably going to thump me. And anyways, and then all of a sudden, you guys, you two donkeys, you switched. And then I'm like, whoa, I'm like Mazer. I'm like, does he fight left? Does he fight right? I don't know. And I didn't have enough time. So I had to all of a sudden go, oh, shoot. And I think when the referees, you know, when we dropped our gloves, I think I might have backed off for a second and looked and say, is he a lefty or a righty? And what am I going to do? And maybe in that hesitation, that's when the linesman came in. Probably saved me from another thumping.
Maybe remember the Three Stooges?
Yeah.
Where the guy they poke in the eye. That's what he did. He didn't know if I was a righty or lefty, so he poked my eyeball.
That was great. And then now when Mayday and I get together at these, you know, alumni events, he's always got a bottle of wine and we talk and I arguably, you know, when I see you see these hockey fights come up, I don't search for them and sometimes they'll come by you on Facebook or however, social media. And I'll look at Mayday and Razor and Barnaby and three of tough as nails, but there's everybody was tough, right? And that was back in the, Jim McTaggart would say it was back in the arms race, but you guys may not have been because you're tougher than me. Let's set the stage. But you guys were the craziest SOBs that I've ever seen. Like just every night I would just look over there and go, no, like you can't be that stupid. Like, and not stupid, but crazy. Like you guys would do stuff that are just like, oh my God, like how do you get away with that? But you guys were so like to be a Buffalo fan would have been fun because every night, like I go to the hockey games in Seattle and the Kraken and you know, Rocco, you know, I go with you a lot of times with your tickets and we'll sit there and, you know, my MO is I leave at the 5-minute mark of the into the third period because nothing's going to happen. Right now, if this was Buffalo back when you guys played,
You got to stay right to the end.
you got to stay to the end because you three idiots are going to come out and you're going to do something, right? You're going to say
Plus
something. You're
18.
going to do something. And I think for all the guys, you know, Mayday, and I love to hear stories about is you and Barney. Like I'll sit there at these alumni events for, you know, breakfast or lunch. We get together before events. And I'm just like, Mazer or Barney, can you tell me another story? Because it's, you know, like you're like, people don't realize like you can't make that. You can't do that in today's day and age, right? You would be kicked out. You would be, you know, you'd be like, the game can't do this. We can't handle us right now. Right. And it's too PC. But anyways, it was a treat and it was, treat to play against you guys. That's for sure.
Well, you know what, Husky, it was great being your teammate. And then it was crazy. In my career, I was in Vancouver, then I went to Phoenix, and then I went back to Vancouver.
Did we play in Phoenix together too?
We played in Phoenix together for a short period of time, and I can't remember. And then, you know who else was kind of did the same flip flop was Chris Joseph. Chai Joe was one as well. Just how our careers kind of follow each other, and I'm not sure who preempted the other, but I had a ton of fun with you, Husky, as a teammate.
Hey,
getting our audience, tell the people that will be watching this podcast who is Jamie Huscroft? What kind of player was he? And I can fill in a couple of the gaps because you were a good player and you were a solid defenseman. You were literally very intimidating to play against and to look at because you had that mustache and you had that full facial hair
Yeah.
when I had zits all over
Yeah.
my cheeks
Yeah.
and I couldn't grow hair. With that,
Who am I? I'll tell you.
yeah, who are you?
Who am I? When I got traded to Phoenix, okay, so Brian Burke called me and he says, "Hey, Husky, because Keenan, they got fired and they brought in
Mark
Mark
Crawford.
Crawford." Oh, anyways, so I had just, oil and water there. So I got, he trades me on the deadline. Berkey, knew that my frustrations and so he says, Husky, he calls me up, trade deadline. He goes, "Hey, Husky, you owe me big time." I'm like, "Berkey," I said, "Where did I get traded to?" He goes, "Phoenix." I'm like, "Oh, and I knew you were there and Mike Sullivan and Talk and Roenick and Kachuk." And I'm like, "Oh my God, like you couldn't ask for a better scenario." And I'm like, "Well, who'd I get traded for?" And he goes, "Confidentially?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I won't say anything." He goes, $1. And I'm like, "No, seriously, what did I get traded for?" He goes, $1. And I'm like, I don't.
Quick question. When was the last time you had your oil changed? If you're like most of us, it's probably long overdue. That's where the Great Canadian Oil Change in Coquitlam comes in. No appointments, no waiting. Just drive in, stay in your car, and you're back on the road in minutes. Their certified technicians handle oil changes, fluid top ups, routine maintenance, all while you wait and have a cup of coffee. It's fast, professional, and hassle free, exactly how car maintenance should be. So next time your vehicle needs an oil change, head to the Great Canadian Oil Change in Coquitlam, BC. Ask for our good friend of the podcast, Normie Lobb, a solid hockey player back in the day and a strong supporter of the game we love, hockey. Drive in, drive out, done. Tell them the podcast sent you. Set the tone. Check them out today. You'll be glad you did. Get an on-site discount when you use the code OT with Mayday. That's OT with Mayday.
Care, right? As long as I'm going to Phoenix. So that's who I am. I'm nobody, right? I got traded for $1 and I think even that probably didn't go through. But I am, I had to be like you, Mazer, without the talent. I was a meat and potatoes type of guy. I was a 9th rounder, right? I mean, they only had 9 rounds back then. And so they were sweeping the floors when my name came up. And so I went to training camp my first year and they had 82 guys, and 82 or 83 guys. And I was number 83. I think wasn't that Vince Papali's number? And right, and so
That's
you're
right.
there with Invincible. So I was the last guy, right? And I remember I was on the treadmill the first year, and remember Maisie where they strapped you. They didn't. They had all those probes with the wires going into the treadmill, and they did your kind of a
Little VO2
VO2
test.
test. So I'm number 83. So there's 83 guys on the treadmill before me. So it's 7:00 at night. I'm the last guy on it. There's probably 15, 20 guys behind me. We're waiting to take the bus back to the hotel. And so I've seen every guy and I'm like, okay, nobody knows my name, right? So anyways, I get on the treadmill and I knew I had to go 14 minutes to get the record. And we're actually 2 Europeans had 14:03 or 4. So I'm like, I just got to go to 14 and people will know who I am. So I remember going through and, getting up there and all of a sudden it goes every 3 minutes, right? Or 2 or 3 minutes, it goes higher and faster, higher and faster. Well, all of a sudden I'm at 13 and everybody's going, go, go, go. And I made it to 14. I'm thinking, I'm going to get the record. And it feels like you're sprinting up a steep hill as you can only
Yeah,
imagine.
it's the worst feeling,
Worse.
especially at the end.
And so anyways, but I'm thinking, holy shoot, I got to go like 5 more seconds and I got the record. And they're like, Husky, you got to 14. And as soon as it went, yeet, and then it sped up, I just passed, like I blanked out. And it was going in my mind, it was going so fast, really matching. So everybody's behind me. I just did a bowling ball. And it just shot me off the treadmill. So now I'm passed out. So I'm rolling. Everything gets ripped off of me, and I steamrolled about 4 or 5 guys. And they're like, they're slapping me. And when I woke up, they're like, you did it. You broke the record.
High five.
So but that's right. You had to do it because nobody knew my name. And then that I think it was that training camp. I need Joey Sorella, and a wonderful guy, captain of our team. I think he's coaching still right now in Ontario Hockey League or something like that. But I remember he came around me and I need him. and I probably shouldn't have. And he goes ass over tea kettle. He's laying on the ground. And this is back Mayday, right? When you fought and you fought during more in the, what do we call it, like inter squad games?
In a squad training
Yeah.
camp games, yeah.
Well, after that, I mean, it was, had to fight twice a day because you had, you practice once and then you play once. And I had to fight 2 or 3 times a day. And that went on for like 10 to 12 days. And I remember my buddy Pat Conacher was
Love Patty.
Love Patty. And Patty told me, he goes, they had a celebration when they sent me back to junior. He says, I think they had a celebration because they hated me. I remember going to the locker room or in the training room to get bandaged up probably. And I would walk through there in New Jersey's locker room and everybody just stopped and they just watched me go. They hated me. And they'd watch me go.
But they knew who you
They
were.
knew who I was. And that's what I'm saying. I keep, as you and I would tell kids now in that same situation is like, how do they get how do you recognize? Like, how can you get recognized, right? What do you got to do to let people know or not forget your name? And I Mayday, that was every day, every game for you. I couldn't even imagine what you guys are doing, but that was, for everybody out there, that's what Maisie and most of us had to do back then. Right. It was crazy at the time, but that was our life, eh? But
So you get sent back to junior, back to Medicine Hat.
yeah, back to
Is
Seattle.
that the year you went?
Back to Seattle that year, and then I got traded to Medicine Hat at the deadline.
Is that when you won the Memorial Cup?
Yeah, that's so I asked to get. It was a week before the deadline, and we were out of the playoffs in Seattle. And I've given my heart and soul to that team, and I love them, to this day. And they were so gracious to say, yeah, we're not making the playoffs. And I said, just trade me to the East because the East didn't play the West, right? And I said, just trade me to a contender. They traded me to Medicine Hat, and I was like the number one. Chris Joseph and I were the defense partners in Seattle. We were 1-2 defense partner, and I got traded to Medicine Hat, and I was thinking I went from 1-2 down to 5-6. So I mean, it was just all, talking to Russ Farwell, and Russ was saying that was just all they needed. They needed that one steady defenseman, on the back end to have 3 good lines, right? And a little toughness, and it just helped us get into get through those crazy teams out with Twister and Chase and Baumgartner and all, Jim McKenzie. Yeah. I mean, every team had 2 or 3 tough guys we had to get through to get into the World Cup. But yeah, so many good memories.
And then after doing that, New Jersey's got their scouts. They're now watching the Memorial Cup. They already know who this crazy guy is that broke the record fitness, that fought all these guys, that actually became an enemy early to your teammates.
Yeah. I had a big
obviously
beard
in training camp.
I had a big beard in the Memorial Cup.
In junior, by the way, in junior.
And I had a Dan Woodley, love the guy. In the series before that, I was, used to give it to me, Maisie. I'm giving it him in front of the net. And in Portland, game, 3, I think, and he turned around, he baseball swung me and hit me right in the chin. And that's why I got a big worm right across here. Didn't break my jaw, but he cut me for like 40, 50 stitches. And he gets a 10-minute match and a suspension anyway. But so I couldn't shave the beard because I had, all this big stitches here. So I had a big beard and it's a big scar and I'm coming to the World Cup. People didn't know who I was, so I could still fool them, and I could pretty much do whatever I wanted. And Wayne McBean was my defense partner to this day, as you know, Maisie, right? And you too, Rock. He's just like, Husky, help me and help me at the Memorial Cup. And anyways, so yeah. But once you get to the NHL, you're not fooling anybody, are you? Right?
Oh my gosh! But what a story to get there. And then, but you, I mean, I know you're a little self-deprecating. Obviously, anybody that can make the National Hockey League, however they get there, is worthy of getting there because there's a lot of others that don't, and there's a lot of talent evaluators. So you're selling yourself short, and I know you're doing that because you're very humble. But when you went back to training camp the next year, with all that experience that you gained in the last 12 months, how did you approach training camp your second year?
Well, it's funny because that second year I fought a lot too. It was still, you still had to do it. Right. And then, But after that, I remember Lou Lamoriello talking to me after my second year, and he's like, "Okay, you've fought enough. Let's just see if you can play." So I remember my third year, I went back there and I didn't fight, and I just played. And he called me and he says, "We need you to fight again." so so I was like, "All right," So, anyways, but I remember getting, I remember because of my fourth year there, I think I played the whole year in New Jersey, or pretty much the whole year. And so I'm feeling good. And back then, before the computers, it was just, remember, I don't know if you did that, you'd read the transactions every day, right? I'd open the
Yeah.
paper and look at the transaction and like, okay, who did New Jersey sign? So I opened the paper up one day and it said, New Jersey signs defensemen Kazatonov, Fedostov, and Starikov. Three defensemen from Russia, all playing on the Red Army team. So I was number 6 defenseman the day before. And that day I became, I think I would have been the number 9 defenseman, 8 defenseman. I told my wife, Annie, and I was just like, "Well, honey," I says, "we'll never play another game in New Jersey again." Right. Because they brought over the 3 Russians and I never did. Right. So I spent that year in the minors and then I got traded to Boston, or assigned with Boston with the next.
How was it? How was it playing on the right side of Ray Bork?
To this day, people ask me, who was your best player and the best teammate? And arguably say Ray Bork, because he was the most humble Hall of Famer I've ever met and played with. But he was so gracious and so kind, but he never, he would just look at you like he was, you're part of the team, right? And wouldn't look down at me, but a lot of the times, like I was a number 7 defenseman in Boston, but I was actually, or a number 6 defenseman, but I was actually like number 7 because I would take like a half a shift. And so, because Ray was such a conditioned athlete that he would go out there, then I would go, right? But I would take a short shift and then he would go right back on again, right? Because he could get his wind back in 15 seconds. It'd take me a minute. Anyway, so it'd give him an extra maybe 5 to 6 minutes a game, right? By me taking short shifts. And anyways, or I'd get on the ice and the coach would say, "Husky, get off the ice. You're terrible." But yeah, Ray Bork was just the stuff he could do out there with the puck, and so smart and defensive. Like defensively, he was as good as he was offensively. And you would have had to play against him. I played with him for the most part, but he was a machine, wasn't he?
Like he was, to this day for me, he's one of my favorite people I've met
Yeah.
in hockey. And I got to know him after our careers, but yeah, Ray Bork, I mean, incredible. I grew up a Boston Bruin fan. In my family, I wasn't allowed to be a Toronto Maple Leaf fan, a Montreal Canadian fan, or a Buffalo Sabre fan. Being in Ontario, those are the three games that you could watch back in the 70s and 80s. And because we all had that, we not bet each other, but we always had to cheer for our one team. So I think it was 1980 or something like that. It was Rick Middleton and Barry Peterson got off to a hot start in the playoffs. And I became a Bruin fan at that time after the Montreal Canadiens won 4 Stanley Cups, or was it 5? Anyways, I was a Bruin fan. So going into the draft in 1990, I didn't know if I was going to be picked by any team, but I wanted to be picked by the Boston Bruins.
You were a 90, yes? So you were a 90?
I was a
You're
90
5
draft.
years younger than me. I'll be darned.
Yeah.
You went
Yeah,
right
maybe.
up. I remember there's a scout named Tim Burke in New Jersey.
Tim Burke.
Yep.
Yep.
I remember when because I would have been in New Jersey, and you would have been a rookie. And I remember him telling me about you, and I think he was a Boston accent or something. And Husky, kind of, you got to watch out for this kid, and he says, because he said that you're a really good player, but you're really tough. Like you're a gamer. And so he kind of gave me a little heads up. So when I played against you, I'm like, oh, okay, this is got to be careful here. But I remember when you were a rookie with you never played in the minors, did you?
I didn't. I didn't until my last 15 or 16 games I played pro were actually with the Grand Rapids Griffins at
but
the
on
end
the
of my
way in,
career.
which is
The way in, no, I went right to Buffalo.
yeah, and which is just like, so people don't realize, like I didn't get, when I would have played against you and I played against each other was my probably 5th year or 6th year. And that's when I really made that jump. And you made it your first year. It took me 6 years to finally get to to get that a chance, right? to do it. But for me, it was almost mentally like people don't realize like you had to go in there as a 20-year-old, right? And fight all these idiots, or not idiots, but these tough people, and you did it as a 20-year-old. It took me 6 years, Mayday, to mature and to get that mental fortitude or that confidence to say, okay, I'm going to fight. Right. And because before, a quick story is when I was 24, 25, I think I remember when I got sent, when New Jersey signed all those, the 3-year, the Russians, I get sent to the minors as a 25-year-old the next year. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, but I would go up, I was in the NHL and I'd get called up and then they'd have you or Twister or, Dave Brown or Kosher Probert. And I'd be like, I can't do it. I didn't want to fight the heavyweights. So, right, they would call up someone else. And then finally, one day I woke up, it was in the summer, and I'm like, I'm fine. Mentally, I wasn't ready. So my neighbor has a landscaping company. So I went over to his house, in the spring. And I said, Dino, I need a job. And he's looking at me, he goes, you're the captain of the minor league, American Hockey League team. Why do you need a job? And I says, "Yes, I need a cognitive boost. Like I need to go to training camp and say, I'm never going to get a regular job again." So I worked landscaping. It was myself. I was the only one who had a legal driver's license, right? Me and 2 or 3 other, Latinos, or I think I was the only white guy on my shift. And I remember I'd work from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. I'd come home, I'd go to the gym and come back. But so that was like 2 or 3 months. I went to training camp and I went through every guy, right? I fought every guy. And then it went,
Just mowed them down too.
because,
Yeah.
right, it was all mental. And I'm like, I will never do that again. Right. I'm never going to get that kind of a job. I mean, those people, I respect the heck out of all those people that have to work so hard like that. And I'm like, I'm not that guy. And then from that, I never played another game in the minors after that until, on the way out, like you did too.
That's an incredible story.
Well, it's one of those things where you got to. I looked in the mirror and I'm like, Brad May's. I don't want to fight Brad May, right? Because I may get beat up. And then after I did that, I'm like, I don't care if Brad May beats me up or not. I'm not going to ever. I don't want to landscape. I don't want to dig ditches in the rain in Seattle ever again, right? And
Wow.
yeah, that's what I needed though, right? But
Switch had to be turned on to actually say, yeah, this is what I'm willing to do, right? No,
McSorley
that's
came up to me. I remember right shortly after that, McSorley came up to me and he's, I looked at him. I'm like, let's go. Right. And before that, he would have to coax me or tease me or do something to say, come on, you little bugger, let's go. But anyways, I'm,
No, I think that's amazing though. That's that mental game,
yeah,
the toughest stretch, right?
yeah,
Between your ears.
yep. Yeah.
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 So
Yeah, to make that transition to the acceptance and willingness to do that is what's not in today's game, right? And that's that's the big chunk that's missing that we talked about it on an earlier pod where, current structure doesn't exist. There's not a consequential driver or preventative process in place in today's NHL, right? I mean, but and you mentioned a couple of the names, Husky, and I was on YouTube and we sit in the dressing room, hear some of these great stories, and you fought virtually a murderer's row of people, including, Brad May, but yeah, I mean, Berube, Chief, you scrapped with him a couple times, Marty McSorley. So, who I've met through you and you guys, he is a big man. He's a big human. And in his day, he would be one scary guy to go up against. He also scrapped, the Grim Reaper, Kelly Chase. Virtually, there's a murderer's row right there. You always say, you're a middleweight, but you had no qualms about fighting out of your weight class,
Well,
right?
I think
he was a good looking middleweight. The guy, first of all, he's incredible shape. Jamie, like, look at him right
Still
now.
is.
You can still see him. Like, you're in good shape at 50. What are you? 59?
15.
59. So I just turned 54. Um, but, and I'm not saying that, but you're still in great shape. One of the hairiest teammates I've played with, by the way. But when you step into it, you're a kid going to the National Hockey League, for me anyways, 19 years old. You know, you're going in the locker room. Of course, Jamie's not in my room, but these guys are men. So just going back to what you said about, you know, how you get your start and mentally, when are you ready? I said to myself, I had a coach, Bill LaForge, in junior, and Bill was my coach, and he set the
Amazing.
tone for me. The two things, guys, that I would love to share, because he was a big inspiration for me. On the wall in our locker room in Niagara Falls, and he's a religious man, a faith driven man, and on the wall it says, "God hates a coward. The coach does too."
Wow.
So that's in my head to this day, because I still think of it. I'm like, you know what? You can't let down your teammates or your coach. You don't want to do that. So when got to the NHL, I had 300 penalty minutes my first year
You
as
had
a rookie.
300 as a rookie.
309 or 304 or
You
something.
fought
So
all the
on the same year, Gord Donnelly, Gordo, who was a lefty, and he was like El Guapo was his nickname, but we had Gord. He was the older, established, like legitimate tough
He's a
guy.
big guy.
Robbie Ray's emerging younger guy, maybe a year younger than you, Husky, but he's played a couple years now, and he's good at what he does and
So
whatever. And then I come in, I'm number 3 on this team, but I have the ability to fight the guys they fight. Got whatever at 19, somewhat of a mutant. Those guys inspired me, but all of a sudden, when I got my chance, I wasn't thrust into the stadium where I had to fight Stu Grimson or Marty McSorley or Bob Probert, the big guys, right? I got number 2 or number 3 on the other team.
you okay now?
And
Okay.
and I so appreciate, and I can honestly say that had I been the only one at 19 being able to,
Yeah.
it would have been much harder, much
But you still
tougher,
would have
and
done it.
I
Yes.
would have done it,
So
but for how long? You wouldn't know.
yeah, yeah. So
But
one of the funniest clips I've ever watched, and there's 2 of them, was you at the end of your career when that big George Laraque, and I didn't know
yes,
that you liked someone like that. So that was after I left Vancouver, I think, or I was probably done. Anyway, so you were he was Edmonton, I think, and you squared up against him and you fought him, and I could just anyways. And he is so big and strong and tough, and you're just in there and you're trying, but he's just so strong. Like, people don't realize doesn't matter what you do, you're not going to hurt him. You're probably not going to hit him, because he's like Brashear did back in the day. He would just pull you, and you are just going and you're trying so hard, and then he throws you down, and then you get back up and you're like he didn't kill me. You're like, my nose is straight. There's no blood. That's a victory.
that's a victory.
And that's what people
That's a
don't realize is it took so much to you. Like, it's hard to explain to people how hard that is to do mentally and physically, is to go and fight. It's like getting into a gym with an MMA fighter who is like a world champion, and then
Killer.
yeah, killer. And then all of a sudden, but you come out of there and you go, I'm alive. And I don't have to go to the hospital or the trainer, right? Anyways, I laughed so hard thinking, that is what you did. People have no idea how or even why you did it. I'm like, Maisie, you don't have to do that, right?
I fought George 5 times. 5 times. And by the way, they're not fights, but I got 5 majors. I got 5 of my major penalties against George. And the first couple, I was able to I threw a couple punches, and then you step on the banana peel and you're out of the fight. Right? You slip and fall. Referees are there to get, and there's sportsmanship. If you did that on the street or something like that, you're
He's gonna
finished,
kill you.
right?
Yeah.
But and I would never ever be in a fight off the ice, but you had the ability. So it was more of a statement that, hey, listen, you send your big guy, whatever. That's out of the way now. Now 55 minutes later, everybody else can play hockey, basically. But my last fight against George, I was with Toronto, and I knew I had to fight him. It was in Montreal, the Montreal Forum. I had just been traded. It's my second last year, 18th year in the league. And I had fought one of his teammates the previous game. So he was fired up, and he's like, we're going. I'm like, no, we're not. He's like, we're going. And I swear the puck dropped almost like our fight, but I was like, I had nowhere to go. I had to do it. And literally in my head, I'm like, I'm going to swing one big punch. If I hit him, if I hit him with it, it could be lights out. but he was so big, I hit him in the chest, and he threw me around almost like Zdeno Chara and Brian McCabe.
Yeah.
Like literally
Yeah.
threw me around and dragged me on the
Ragdolling
ice.
you.
But he's a nice guy and respectful. But he's 265, 270 pounds, whatever he was. I'm 215 and I'm strong, but not that strong.
No, that was like me when I I was in Boston. I fought so it was Edmonton against L.A. Warren Reichel, Bundy, and so I think he was leading the league in penalty minutes that year because I think because he was just anybody would fight him, and so tough kid, right? And you talk about a big heart. And anyways, I fought him and I did well. And I'm in the bench or I'm on the penalty box in the Boston Garden and everybody's cheering out of work. And then I looking down, I look up and there's McSorley, like he's so big. And then he taps the glass, right? He goes tap, tap. This is in the Boston Garden in front of 15, 16,000 people, whatever. And I looked up and I'm like, shoot. And he's like, Husky, he says, you and me out on the ice when you're done. And I'm like, sure. I looked at him. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. I says 5 minutes. And then so everybody, and then I looked down and I was like, oh shoot, I'm going to, right? So I went out there and, anyways, the next shift, I was out and then he jumped on the ice and we fought. But 10 seconds into the fight, his jersey comes off and I'm like, I can't do anything. It's like Razor when his jersey come off, I can't do anything. Right. And just, he just hurt his hand after that. But, but
What's your favorite part of the National Hockey League when you were in it?
Probably that's a great question. After the games, right? After a game and, you got a coach like Tommy McVie, God rest his soul, saying, hey, how about that Huscroft kid taking on Stu Grimson? And how about Ray Bork, scoring that overtime goal or something, but getting recognition from the coach was amazing. But just the guys, in the locker room after practice, after a game was probably the highlight, but on top of that is this for me in the Boston. I'm in the Boston Garden in the old locker rooms, right? And we've got Terry O'Reilly and we got Ray, we got Bobby Orr and these alumni coming through the room after the game. Johnny Busick, very good. Tommy Johnson. We've got so many
All these legends.
legends coming through the room. And I remember just sitting there and Bobby Orr coming up next to me and, a guy named Brent Hughes and myself and saying, Hughesy, Husky, what a great game. And then he'd leave and we'd look at each other and go, Bobby Orr knows my name. And I've been there 2-3 years, 2 years at the time, but we had so much respect for those guys. So I think for me, just in the locker room after the game, just being with the guys and then I remember guys would bring their families in. I'd bring my dad into the locker room in Vancouver or something. And, there'd be mess and Pavel and these guys talking to my dad. And for me, I'd look over and say, I made it. I didn't care about myself, but I'm like, Pavel Bure and Mark Messier are talking to my dad, right? And talking about farm stories and all that. And I thought that for me was the best part. How about you?
I'd say the same thing. My parents, because I played in Buffalo, 2 hours from where I grew up, two and a half, depending on the highway situation. They got to see me play as a young person. But my dad would bring my uncles and some of his buddies on some road trips. So that was really special for me. Really crazy. 16 years into my career, I get traded to the Anaheim Ducks, and my dad comes on a trip. And we had won the Stanley Cup with Anaheim. So it was the next year. So it was my 17th year. And
17.
my he came on a trip and Randy Carlisle took me aside. He goes, you're distracted. And I don't know if you're going to play tonight. And I don't know what these coaches think or do. I would, if I was a coach, I'd do it differently, but everybody has the method to their madness. And it probably worked out fine. I believe we were in Columbus on this particular story. And he's like, I don't know if you're going to play tonight. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Of course I'm going to play tonight. He goes, I don't think you're ready. You're not focused. I'm like, Randy, I said, my dad is driven in. He was in Pittsburgh last night. He's here. He just drove from Pittsburgh to Columbus and he's here. Like, and my uncles and like, I play the best when my dad and my uncles are in the crowd. Like, there's a track record here. He's like, I don't know if I can trust it. And he got me going. And I'm like, so I left this meeting and I went to not the pregame meal back at the hotel, and I was sour. because I was like, I don't know if I'm playing. So I'm uncomfortable for the next 3 hours. This whole thing, you start playing, thinking between the lines and trying to figure things out, which clearly you have no control over. And of course, I end up playing. I ended up fighting, I think, Jody Shelley that night, and I came out like a frick ball, ball of fire, because I need, like, all of a sudden I'm more inspired. First of all, I don't like the way he treated me there, but I'm gonna prove him wrong. And I think that's kind of my life, anyways. Is
Yep.
I want to prove people wrong, but I don't want to ever embarrass my dad, right? In that situation, and maybe Randy Carlo, maybe to a method to his madness, he's a smarter guy than I thought.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's all you need is that little edge,
Yeah, a
right?
little push.
Yeah.
I've heard some
And
stories about Randy Carlisle anyways, and one with you, Maisie, but we're going to have to come back to that. I need to ask Husky a quick question. You mentioned coach a couple of times, Tommy McVie. I know him. I love him. I'm so sad that he passed. I know you were close. You do his voice so good. You crack me up. We did an alumni event just before COVID or just after COVID. And coach was one of the coaches there, and I was one of the goaltenders going back and forth. He was like, in that voice of yours, yeah, played a good game. Other than that second, 9th, 14th, and 20th goal, you played pretty good, kid. So give us a couple of Tommy McVie stories, because the guy's an absolute legend. Give me some.
Man, I mean, I was with Tommy for 5 years in New Jersey and 3 in Boston. And Tommy was he was a kind of a man's man, right? He taught you. He said if you couldn't beat him in the streets, you can't beat him on the ice, right? So he wanted, tough, tough teams, and yeah, old school. But I mean, he was 55 years old when I think when I first had him in there. He was my coach in New Jersey. I would have been, 20. And I remember him walking through the room, and he was the biggest guy. He would have been the biggest guy on the team. Like he was just huge and no fat. And he was a specimen. But his thing was just, if you're 5 minutes early, you're 10 minutes late. In other words, right? You had to be respectful and get there early. If you were there 5 minutes early and you weren't on that bus, like he would just say, let's go. There'd be people. I remember there'd be people in the parking lot 5 minutes early, getting their bags out of the vehicle. He'd say, let's go. So they'd have to get back in their car, follow us to the next city. And anyway, but he just let it be known that you had to work so hard, but I remember one of my first games when I got called up to Boston. Tony Twist we were playing St. Louis, Maisie, and I told you this story to Rock, and Twister was out there. So, and I'm, I think I was a forward at the time, so I'm getting 6, 7 shifts a game. But it wasn't until probably the second shift when they finally put Twister out there. So Tommy puts me out there, and he taps me on the shoulder. He goes, "Hey, kid." He called me son. "Hey, son." He goes, "Twister's out there." And then he went, "Good luck." He's my coach. He goes, "Oh, good luck." And he shake his head. And I look back at him, and I kind of, I said something, probably sarcastic back to him. And then I went on there, and, I got, Twister thumped me like George thumped you. So I got back, and he was like, "Hey, nice work, kid." But and that was Tommy. Every day you just do anything you could to please him, right?
Quick question. When was the last time you had your oil changed? If you're like most of us, it's probably long overdue. That's where the Great Canadian Oil Change in Coquitlam comes in. No appointments, no waiting, just drive in, stay in your car, and you're back on the road in minutes. Their certified technicians handle oil changes, fluid top-ups, routine maintenance, all while you wait and have a cup of coffee. It's fast, professional, and hassle-free, exactly how car maintenance should be. So next time your vehicle needs an oil change, head to the Great Canadian Oil Change in Coquitlam, BC. Ask for our good friend of the podcast, Normie Lobb, a solid hockey player back in the day and a strong supporter of the game we love, hockey. Drive in, drive out, done. Tell them the podcast sent you. Set the tone. Check them out today. You'll be glad you did. Get an on-site discount when you use the code OT with Mayday. That's OT with Mayday.
I got a good Tommy McVie story. Oh, and you were probably playing with the Boston Bruins. at this time, 1995.
Yeah.
It was a lockout year,
Yep.
so we came back.
Yep.
I was in Pittsburgh. One of our games, I skated down the ice and I suckered Ulf Samuelsson and I broke my hand. So I'm out for another 6 weeks or whatever it was. And during that absence, my wife and I we had just bought a house in Buffalo. So we were closing on the house. The team was on a road trip. I'm trying to train in the morning to skate and do my things, whatever, to get myself ready to get back. And here's the story. I'm kind of frugal at the time. I don't want to spend money, and I know by being close to the trainers that the team's on the road and they have the U-Haul, the box truck, and they park it and they leave the keys. They don't lock the door because it's actually on the tarmac of the air of prior aviation. So instead of me renting a U-Haul for $200, I went and I stole or used
You.
the team equipment
Or
truck.
illegally.
But so what I do is I have to go to skate at Saberland first. So I pick it up at like 6:37 in the morning. I drive it to the practice rink. I'm going to skate for my hour. I've now got 7 hours before they play an afternoon game and they're flying home and they'll probably be back to Buffalo by 6 o'clock at night, something like that. So I have all day that I can move all my furniture from this small little apartment into this house. Now figure what could go wrong. Well, I'm a city guy, or certainly I'm not a country guy. I didn't realize that you can't put diesel gasoline in an unleaded. Is that the bad thing?
Any gasoline that's not diesel. So
Whatever
it
it was,
has to be either, leaded or unleaded.
whatever it was,
Either way.
I blew the engine. I blew the engine of the team equipment truck, but it didn't stop working until I actually parked it in Saberland's parking lot where I was working out. And when I came out after working out, I'm like, and it won't start this truck. And I'm like, I can't figure this out for the life of me. But then just on the little speedometer, I'm like, it says unleaded gas only or something. And I'm like, shit, what does that mean? So I get out and I ask one of the rink attendants, I'm like, what happens if you put diesel in an unleaded? And he's like, no, you didn't. I'm like, yeah, I did. And he goes, oh my God, you ruined the engine, whatever. So I now have to get a ride back to my house. My girlfriend or fiance at the time is at the house. We're now, I can't move, but I'm like, what am I going to do? Now I have to get another truck to have it parked in the tarmac of the airport because they use that truck when the team comes home from the road. And I haven't asked for permission. Anyways, long story short, I end up going to get this truck. I had to drive to the south towns of Buffalo. I bring it back. I park it there, but I'm waiting inside the cab of this truck because when Ripper and George, these guys, they come off the airplane, they don't know what's going on. So I have to tell them what I've done. And I'm scared shit. Listen, John Muckler's our coach and GM. Like what I did is like so wrong. I stole the truck. Tommy McVie, they flew in at the exact same time. Tommy McVie, who's assistant coach in the NHL, he never rides with the team. He rides with the trainers in the equipment truck. And he's such a wonderful guy. He actually helps the trainers unload and then they go for dinner. Well, the truck I got was for the new, I think, Boston Bruins. They take it down. Well, I guess it was backfiring the whole way, and it was a shitty truck, and just really bad. Anyways, so the next morning at 7 and 8 in the morning, I'm at the Odd and I'm skating, and I hear this big bang on the glass, and it's Tom McVie. I don't know who Tom McVie is, but I recognize him. He's their coach, and I skate around right by the Zamboni in the Odd. And he opens up the door and he's like, Bradley. And he's got that real deep voice.
Hey.
And he's like, what the fuck happened yesterday? And I'm like, oh my God, what do you mean? He goes, something wrong with the truck. And I said, oh, geez. I go, Tom, oh my God, you're not going to believe it. I fucked up, whatever. He's like, you certainly did, son. He goes, but you know what? If you can play left wing in the National Hockey League, fuck them. Don't worry about it. And then he shuts the door. I went back to skating. I'm like, that was my only interaction, my only conversation with Tom McVie. And it was like, he's memorable to me. Fantastic man.
Yeah, I invited him like Rocco and I, we have the alumni here, and Rocco's part of our alumni in Seattle, and so I'd invite him out as our honorary coach, right? So he'd be behind the bench, and then at the hot stove lounge afterwards, he'd talk or tell some jokes, and it's it was sad the last 6 to 12 months. He was suffering a little bit from just I think memory problems and maybe dementia or whatever it was, and it's hard. If someone once said, like, hey, Superman's lost his cape, and he was that guy, like he was Superman. I remember I was in Boston heading up to the weight room afterwards. I'm kind of rounding the corner, and all I can hear is, "You're not gonna beat me," and I'm like, "Holy shoot!" Like someone's fighting Tommy. "You're not gonna fucking beat me this time." I go running around the corner. I get in there and he's on the treadmill and he's just sweating away and he's running 100 miles an hour and he's yelling at the treadmill, "You're not gonna beat me, you son of a bitch." And he's by himself. There's nobody else in the training room. And it was just a little training room. And I looked at him. I'm like, "You're nuts." I said, "Buddy, you're nuts." And that was Tommy, right? He just every day,
An
he wanted,
absolute
yeah,
character, right? Like,
yeah,
I mean,
Would he be your favorite coach?
times 10. Yeah, there's
Times
there's
10.
not even a close second. Like, no, like, and you can, like the Pat Conakers and, these character guys, right, that played for him over the years. And, even, the Ray Borks and the Cam Neelys and you name it, they loved him. Like Ray and Cam, that's why I love Boston. And everybody on the whole team, that's not just those two, but they absolutely loved him, right? Because he was just he knew how to motivate people, right, the right
and he was
way,
genuine, right? He was
genuine.
genuine. He was just a genuine
Yeah,
guy. It spoke volumes, right? So when
yeah,
he talked to you or acknowledged you or engaged you, it
yeah,
spoke volumes.
yeah.
So I can totally see that. I know we've been chatting about coaches, but I think both of you guys played with Keenan. And, Husky, I've told you that my interaction story with Mike Keenan, but do you have any good Mike Keenan story? Yeah, yeah.
Hi,
Give me
Mike.
something.
If you're
Give us
listening,
something.
love you, buddy. I do. You know what? And
Mike, I don't love you, but that's okay. You can't send me to
you know,
Siberia.
like Mazer, you said something about Carlisle when you in Anaheim. So I got traded on the deadline from Tampa to Vancouver, and I'm in Florida. Remember when Mess had that
Yeah,
rookie party for Ole,
that's
Gachi, and those guys?
yes.
Yeah. So I'm
Yes.
in on that day, and so we have that rookie party that night, and it was a gong show, and oh, that was fun. So, anyways, we drank a little bit too much and watching these kids have a good time and pay for all our drinks and our meal, and then so the next day we're in Miami practicing, and you guys are going a million miles an hour. And in Tampa, when I was there, it was more of a country club atmosphere, and we didn't have the Beeries and the Messiers and the McGillneys coming down at you 100 miles an hour. And anyways, I get out there, and after the end of the practice, Keenan comes up to me, he goes, "Husky, thought you were a better player than that." And I know I'm 27, 28 years old at the time and young, old enough to know what, he's all about. And I said, "Mike, I know what you're trying to do, right?" And I said, "And I totally respect what you're saying." And I says, "But give me 2 to 3 weeks to get back into shape." And I says, "I'm going to get in your lineup and I'm never going to get out of the lineup again." I says, "I promise you that." So for the next 3 weeks, I remember in practice, I was just running around and cross-checking and hitting, and I remember you guys didn't like that, but it took after about 3 weeks, I got back into the lineup, and never once, did he take me out of the lineup. And I just I he I never saw I love the way he motivated players, he always put the bat for us. We stayed in the nicest hotels and right, nice he had that nice plane, and I loved him, and I was sad to see him go, right? I didn't agree with it. I thought he was a great coach, but yeah, he's probably arguably one of my top coaches, but, every
Hey,
people
you know
some
what?
people hate him.
This is going to live in infamy. But with this, we're now in the with when we post this
It's
and people can
online.
listen
It
to the
lives
pod,
there
it's
forever.
on there out there forever
Yep.
in the ether. Hey, I'm here to say that Mike Keenan was awesome. He was great to me. I recognize a lot of players maybe would feel that he wasn't their guy. They hate him. They may dislike him. He may have ruined their careers. There's a lot of different perspectives. My perspective of Mike Keenan, he was great to me. He forced me to be more vigilant, forced me to actually play. I say nervous, but play on the edge, which by the way, that's when you play your best hockey. as long as it doesn't overwhelm you. I love Mike Keenan and I would love to see him again. And I know some of my friends that don't like Mike Keenan, but that's their perspective and I respect that. But for me, Mike Keenan was one of my favorite coaches as well, Husky.
Too.
He really was.
Yeah, I just didn't see, I was before Messier and Trevor, the situation there, or I was there afterwards, right? But no, I had nothing. I got nothing but good things to say, and I wish I would have got traded there 3, 4, 5 years earlier, right, with Mike, and because he had his following, he had his, the Noonans and
Yes.
the guys that Murray Barron and Zezel and those guys that kind of followed him around, and like yourself, I think I would have maybe fit into that mold, but yeah,
And his practices were, you know, some of them were unconventional, but they're high tempo,
oh,
fast. He was a traffic cop on the blue line and you'd get to one corner in the drill where it already started on the other side of the ice. So at the end of the day, our conditioning went up for sure.
yeah. A quick story. Yeah, I mean, you had to be the conditioning was unbelievable, and I that's why I came over from Tampa. We never had those. Right? Yeah, hour and a half practices, and they were half pace and systems, and then Keenan was like systems. You're gonna and it was just like go go go, and but I remember I was like I got to get in the lineup, right? So I would get there before he got to work, I would be in the weight room. And then when he left work, I would be on the ice. Well, there'd be days like I'd get up to the weight room and no sooner I'd get up there and all of a sudden I could hear him coming up the stairs in Vancouver. Remember you go in
Yep, yep. At 8
weight
rinks.
rinks, he'd come up the stairs and into the weight room and then make a left into his office. So I remember, and I'd be sitting there, I'd be just starting, like I'm 3 minutes into the ride and I hear him coming up.
Are you doing a Tommy McVie? You're not gonna beat
You're
me.
not going to beat me. Well, so I did. I'd have, right. I would go, I took the water bottle. I'd go, and then I would make 2 puddles, you write like a puddle under my left and right hand, right? Because that you drift down and then the puddles. That's how you knew, right? So I'd make 2 puddles and I'd douse myself with water and I'd just start sprinting, right? And he'd come by and I'd pretend like I wouldn't see him, right? And I'd be down there, head down, I could see him go in his office and then slow down a little bit, right? But I made damn sure that every day he got to work, I was on the bike or in the weight room, and then when he would leave, I'd try to be on the ice afterwards and, just doing extra stuff for whether I'm doing anything, doesn't matter, but he would see me in the locker room, right?
Yep, yep.
And that's what it took. It just took a couple of weeks of that. And he was like, okay, this guy's working hard enough. I got to get him in somehow. And he found a way to get me in. And, but those are the coaches you like, I'll do anything for you. I'll go through like, right. You'll fight those guys for him.
Do you think, and I know it's displayed differently, like passion for what your job is. Do you think the young players today, as great as the game is, that character is missing or it's just not displayed the same way?
I think it's not displayed the same way. These guys don't have to grow up. They don't grow up with that mentality like we had to, right? I describe it as going into the Coliseum there, right? They open that door out and the Russell Crowe goes up that Coliseum with the lions and the gladiators, right? And it was like that, like going into each night going into the building reminded me of that. You go into the
Yes.
stadium and you're like, boy, what's going to happen, right? You didn't know who was, who was coming after you or what was going on. That was every night. Now, these guys have never had to experience that. And I'm glad they don't because it's not healthy. It's not healthy. And we're lucky to be, have our wits or somewhat together to, after we went through that. But these guys, I like it. Where I watched the game the other night, I was watching the Buffalo play. Damn, they look good. And in Seattle, and I was like 2 rows up from the glass. So I'm right there. And it was so much fun. Guys, because I thought, there's a couple guys, they try to take runs at the guys and they just give them the old dipsy doodle.
Yeah.
So the guys,
yeah.
they can't do that. You can't run around like we used to be able to because even if you tried to hit some guy, they're just gonna dipsy doodle around you and make you look silly. And then if you do, hit them good, they're gonna fine you or, throw you out of the game. So, I think they've done a good job. I really like the NHL, the way it is. It'd be nice to see the odd fight, now and then, but regardless, I love the product. I love going to the games, and I love the fact that these guys, they make good money in a retirement, and right. It's good.
The
Yeah,
skill level is, and the ability to do the things that they do with their edges. I mean, it's so advanced.
I was
Like it's
watching
just
is it Tage Thompson? He's
big
got to
tall
be
guy, yeah.
6'6",
7,
6'7".
6'7".
6'7". Yeah, he's
Six-
a beast.
6'7". He's got the talent. He's got hands that are just sick, right? I look at him and going, you're 6'7". No one's fighting you. No one's going to hit you. If they do, they're going to bounce off you. And you're just dangling, having fun. I'm like, Maisie, that was like you and me in practice, right? Being a talented player in practice, like Pavel and Mess in practice.
Yeah, right.
They're out there just having a good time, but no one's going to hit them. And that's like these guys now in the NHL. It's like they must be just go like this is. I would look forward to the games, right?
I know. Yeah, I agree.
Husky, I think originally I met you way back when I was playing college hockey in Medicine Hat. You had just come in, and I was friends with Mike Claringbull,
Yeah.
and Troy Gamble. So were
Fitzy.
you at the? And I always have to ask about the goalies because
Fitzy.
part of the goalie association that I feel that I should be a part of as a grocery stick that I am as a goaltender, as because you always have the best chirps for me.
God, you're awful.
Were you there? Were you there for the? You got to give me at least one professional goalie story, and then give me a story about Troy Gamble and Mark Fitzpatrick. Were you there for that night where Gamzee was chasing around the Boston Pizza?
Not that one. I remember that. I do remember that. One was it our coach or the GM, with Russ Farwell or like Brian Maxwell or they were driving up whatever for a highway in Medicine Hat, and all of a sudden there goes Troy Gamble, and then there goes Fitzy, and Fitzy was chasing Troy Gamble because they had a party up the road, and Troy said something, and then so Fitzy just chased him, but it was always those, Fitzy would do some.
He was an odd duck.
And,
and
Gamzee
was
Troy
great.
would,
It was
Troy would, chirp him, and like Maisie, kind of like you and Barney and Razor, you're just egging people on, and that's what I think Gams did. But to Fitzy's credit, and Gams was a great goalie too. I mean, he had a great career, but Fitzy was he was really good, and got us through a lot of those. Those games to get to the Memorial Cup, and then carried us through. So, but
he's a big, tall, lanky goalie too.
and he was good. But I remember
he
was
an odd duck. Odd duck.
Odd duck. Yeah, I remember he'd lose the game, and then he'd put his work boots on and he'd run the stairs, and you couldn't talk to him. But he's a goalie, right, Maisie? He's a goalie.
Definitely different than us.
Yeah,
definitely different than us. That's right. That's probably why I'm not a very good goalie, because I'm a normal guy. I think.
Terrible goalie.
Yeah, cut me deep, man. Cut me deep.
Yeah, that's okay. You're great. Hey, you're an amazing guy, but you are a terrible goalie. Just boy, everybody knows, for the record.
Cut me deep, man.
Maisie,
stop your ass next time you're by me. I swear to God.
I look like Gretzky out there on our 3-on-3 games with Rocco. And I just feel sorry for him. We were playing. What were we playing? The shootout game. Was it just a shoot?
Yeah, it was like a shot rebound. Yeah.
Yeah, rebound. The rebound game. Afterwards, and so we had Rocco in that, and you'd shoot and and then you'd play the rebound, and you could pass it, but we had to dummy it down and say, okay, you can shoot, and on the rebound you couldn't pass it, you had to shoot it right back at him, and he was so tired at the end, like we ended up winning the game, and which is rare for the players, usually goalies, advantage to the goalies, but poor Rocco was so tired. And
I can't imagine being a goalie, seriously, at this age, dropping down and getting up, and
no,
it's enough for me to get out of my chair.
A full hour of 3-on-3 with these.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
And then the old look off passes.
Yeah,
they're merciless.
They're merciless. Yeah.
Maisie, you're still skating a couple times a week then?
I play some charity things, Husky.
I see a lot.
Yeah, I don't play pickup hockey necessarily, but I'll play in probably a tournament every couple weeks. I don't know, probably 10 or 12 tournaments a year, like one day events kind of thing, and I love it. When I put my skates on, I love it.
Yeah.
And then when I take my skates off, I don't.
hate
I actually almost hope somebody steals my equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. I know it's kind of it's a weird relationship, but
yes.
Until the
but
next
when I
week.
play, I love it.
Yeah.
I
Till the
really
next
do.
week,
Yeah.
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 I
No,
totally
Just
get it.
it takes a lot to get ready.
it does. Well, we
Does.
skate. I'll skate 2 or 3 times a week now at one of my rinks, but Rocco's on one skate, and then I got a couple more. But it's nice when you get that core group of players that all know. Right, we've been together for how many? Rocco, we've been doing this for 10 years now.
Yeah, we're close. We're getting there. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, but these guys, right? You get to know them, and it's doesn't matter. You can bump up against each other, and hey, sorry about that, and
Right.
all that. But did we lose Maisie?
Part of that whole bit, right?
Yeah.
We've got a couple of overtime questions. Maisie just kind of popped out with some internet issues, but he'll pop back in. I've got overtime questions that I wanted to ask you. So can you tell, and we'll wrap it up. You've been amazing, by the way.
Thanks, Maisie.
Give me one of the best pranks that you ever involved with or ever saw in your professional career. You don't have to say names, but you can. Any good prank that you were a part of or you saw within the group?
For me, we're in Buffalo. I love this. A guy named Brian Patafi, and he does a lot of comedy work now. I see him on Instagram, and he was a trainer and in Calgary. And we had a guy, everybody knows Guy Lapointe, and Guy was probably the biggest prankster I've ever seen. Right, and you did not prank Guy Lapointe. And hey, welcome back, Maisie.
Sorry,
Talking
guys,
about
I cut
what's the
out.
biggest prank? Yeah. So, anyways, I was in Calgary. We're going into Buffalo, and Brian Patafi, our trainer, was telling Guy, he goes, Guy, I'm a bigger prankster than you are, or whatever. And Guy's like, he had that laugh, yuck, 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 yuck. Guy was a really big guy, and our defensive coach. And Guy's like, okay, So Patafi goes with the trainers and probably even, Tommy McVie, and they go to the odd and they unload their equipment for a couple hours and they come back. Well, Guy Lapointe was in charge of the rooming list. So he had Patafi's room card, right? And he goes up to Patafi's room. He's up there for probably an hour. He takes his towels, he wets them down. He takes his toilet paper, he wets the original roll right down, and he takes any excess toilet paper away. And then he goes in and he puts cornflakes or something like that in his bed, right into the sheets. And then I don't know what he did to his pillows, but he took 3 alarm clocks, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and then he hit them, right, and then put them at different times. Right. So, and in the morning, so we got like a 2 a.m. alarm clock, a 3 a.m. alarm clock, a 4 a.m. alarm clock, a 5 a.m. room service. And then, and it didn't end. Like Patafi, so he goes in, tries to take a shower at night. He can't. Right. And then he goes to take a dump. He can't because there's no paper towel. There's no toilet paper. So, and then he goes to bed. And it's probably 2 a.m. when he goes to bed. Cornflakes, right, in the sheets or whatever he had in his sheets. Pillow, maybe he didn't even have pillows. He took the pillows. So he's just getting to sleep. Boom, alarm. He's got to find it. Where is it? Then he just gets to sleep. Another alarm. Then another alarm. Room service. So it's like 6:30 in the morning, and he talks with a lisp. so Pataf has a lisp. So he's like, that's it. He's in the hallways with his boxer shorts on, and he's a little overweight. So he's pudgy guy. He's down the hallway going, and Guy put himself right next to Patafi, right, so he could witness this. So Guy's sitting there, and he's peeking out the people. Patafi's in his underwear. And because the room service is there, he goes, that's it, Guy. He goes, I quit. When? Guy's telling us the next morning. Well, we're laughing so hard because Patafi's there with Guy, and they're both kind of telling it side by side. We're laughing so hard that we're crying, right? But Maisie, as you know, these pranks, they went on every day, right? That's every day. And so you had to be so careful who you pranked. And because if you get the wrong guy, like you just don't know what they'll do, right? And but that was an innocent prank, and no one got hurt. And, but yeah, it was every game, and you had to be so careful that you didn't disrespect a veteran, or didn't prank the wrong guy, and if you did, you didn't tell anybody, right?
Because you're going to pay the price.
Yeah, I got
But you know
traded.
what though? Even when you don't tell somebody, there's always somebody in that room that's seeing something. Like you
Yep,
can't get away with anything. Like a
and they'll
trainer,
tell.
somebody,
Yeah, and they'll always tell the guy that you pranked, right? And
always,
but
always.
I got traded when I got traded from Calgary, to Tampa. I remember I was on the trade deadline, and I was just going out in practice, and I had all my stuff on, and they're like, "Hey, Husky, you just got traded." I'm like, "Oh, sweet, right?" Because I know I got traded. All right, they told me I got traded to Tampa. I'm from Calgary. It's minus 30 degrees, and go to Tampa, 70 degrees. So, anyways, I'm like, sweet. So I go up and talk to Al Coates, and he's like, "Hey, Husky, you got traded, and thanks for everything," and give him a big hug. And then I go back down, and the trainers are getting all, I guess I didn't have to grab anything, or yeah, I grabbed my skates and stuff, and off I went, and skates and stick, and then. But the trainers are the coaches are all on the ice, Guy and Pierre Paget and wherever they were on the ice. So I was like, oh, I can get Guy now. So I went into the into the coach's room, and they were going on the road. So Guy had his dress shoes and his dress socks. Anyways, and I think I filled his dress sock full of baby powder and put some Vaseline on some stuff and whatever on the way out, because I knew that I'd probably never see Guy again, right? Or play on the same team. He was there. So Guy, if you're listening to this, sorry about that, buddy, but I never saw Guy again after that. So I'm like, oh, thank God, because he tormented me, right?
Corn sex in your bed sheet.